I just like to build stuff. I've always tinkered with putting things together. Drums were just a natural progression, I think. Because I did that for a little while. I kind of built a few guitars, and those, I don't want to call that easy to put together because they're not, but I started understanding the dynamics of it. And with drums, like, you know, refurbishing and redoing vintage kits and things, I enjoyed taking them apart, figuring out why they clicked, what made them work, why they sounded the way they did, what was an edge for. I mean, a lot of drummers, you know, just don't learn the instrument. They learn the craft and how to play, but I always tell them, like, you know, learn it. You know, why does it do what it does? And so I always enjoyed taking them apart. And when I was in college and stuff, you know, before I really got into refinishing stuff, you know, I was always rewrapping my kit in different colors and everything. And so I think all that together was a natural progression to build drums, because it's kind of like, oh, I can keep making them and new, because I would get tired of the same kit. I'd play it for a while, and then I would get really just bored with the look. And so this just made sense, because I can kind of make one, have it, and then I can give it to somebody else and make another one. I've been kind of building and refurbishing vintage kits for years, even when I was touring and playing in bands and things like that. I love doing it, and I got into that, just kind of rebuilding, and I started kind of eventually learning how to kind of make my own stuff. I would kind of figure out, like, oh, I could buy those parts, I could buy this, or I could make these shells or whatever. And so I kind of got into that, and eventually, you know, I kind of did it for fun, never had a name on it or anything. I did it for a handful of years that way, and then when I was living in Wilmington, a guy I got to know, he and I were having coffee for a couple times during a period of a couple weeks there. And just one day we jokingly were like, you know, we should start a drum company. And so he kind of wanted to start it with me, but he kind of went on his own path and did some acting and stuff. And so I pretty much took the idea, threw a name on the drums, and the rest is history, I guess, as they say. So. Since day one, it's all been word of mouth. I don't do any heavy advertising. I definitely enjoy more of the punk rock DIY way of doing things. Like, I'm definitely not you know, a lot of guys tend to do, you know, a lot of videos every week, and they're, you know, hey, I'm this guy, this is what we're doing, we're building it. And I'm not into that. I like to build stuff, put it up, let the drums do their own thing, you know, let people see it and let them speak for themselves. Like, I mean, it's just from, you know, from bands playing and people talking about it. But I definitely, I mean, it's its own beast. I let it grow on its own. You know, I don't do the NAMM shows. I don't do vintage drum shows. I don't do any of that stuff. I think they're pretty cool, but to me, it's like, you know, I kind of just enjoy doing my own little thing. You know, you know, and it becomes what it becomes. I'm sure I've had guys tell me all the time in other companies, like, oh, you could be so much larger, but I don't really need to I don't have to be in everybody's face all the time. I'd rather I enjoy, like, the one-on-one relationships with guys that I meet, and being able to build stuff, and it's crazy. I guess the company's larger than I think it is, but you know, to me, it's just me in a big building and a bunch of wood shells. So. I had a learning curve when I first started building, because I'm just like, I didn't know how to cut edges. I mean, and this is way back before I even started Anchor. You know, this is when I was younger, and I was like, I wanted to kind of build my own stuff for fun. And I'm just like, how do you do that? You know, I was like, I don't know. And because you know, when I bought some shells before, you know, obviously everything's squared off and you cut it to the size you want. But I'm just like, how do you get that round stuff? You know, I didn't know what I was doing, and so I did it the hard way. I did everything by hand. You know, I pretty much took an old, you know, flat file and went to town and sanded everything. I didn't know what a router was. You know, I mean, growing up, my dad and grandfather had, you know, a lot of woodworking tools, but anything by hand I can do, I'll do. I've only got a couple of big tools, and a lot of companies out there have all this high-end machinery, which is awesome, I guess. But I enjoyed doing it the hard way. I think it puts a little more soul into the drum, if you will. Now it's like tying your shoes. I mean, it's like, I could do it blindfolded. You know, you just feel it and be like, cut it, and I get it. I totally know where I want it. I know where it's gonna fall on the head. I know how it's gonna sound, and so yeah, there's a lot of stuff to learn. A lot of guys think it's like, I hear this stupid term all the time online that, you know, I'm a cake decorator. A lot of guys in this business, you know, boutique builders, we're called cake decorators because we buy shells or whatever and decorate them. But, you know, I tell guys like that all the time. I was like, okay, you do one. I mean, it's not as easy as it looks. You know, there's a lot of time involved and a lot of ways to go wrong. So, and I've gone wrong many times. You know, I'm not perfect, but yeah, there's a big learning curve. But once you get there, it's awesome. It's a good feeling to know you know how to do all those, you know, different steps. You know, being able to get stuff done on time is difficult. A lot of guys don't understand why it takes as long as it does. Like, why does it take 3 months, or why is it still 6 months and I haven't gotten a drum kit yet? And it's, you know, it's just me. So that's one of the biggest hurdles, is I'm the only guy doing everything. And it's like, I'm not just building. You know, I have days, some days I sit at home and literally just answer phone calls and emails all day. Or I try to update the website, or I try to put new stuff up on social media. So there's a lot of stuff. So a lot of it's just time. You know, that's the biggest hurdle, huge hurdle to get over. And getting guys to understand why it takes so long. You know, it's like, I'm not just building your kit, I'm also building 20 other drum kits at the same time. So I'm kind of bouncing around to everything. So when I'd say over the last 10 years of me doing this, I would say at least 4 or 5 times a year, I'll have somebody approach me via phone call, email, or I'll meet them in person. They'll come out to the shop and want to see how it's done. And they're like, hey, you know, I really want to do this. You know, what kind of, you know, what would you suggest? And I'm like, I suggest doing something else. I was a musician for many years, you know, ruined my credit, that kind of, and I didn't have anything to fall back on. So going into this, like, I started Anchor with nothing. Literally, I bought just enough stuff to buy, you know, parts to build a snare drum, built it, put a picture up online, and was like, here we go, you know, put a website up, and that was it. I mean, I have no financial backing, no nothing. I still don't. It's a very difficult business to really make a heavy living at. I mean, it's kind of more of a labor of love. You know, it kind of keeps itself afloat. But so I try to tell guys all the time, it's like, if you want to do it because you love doing it. Don't do it because you think you're gonna be, you know, driving a BMW next week, because it's just not gonna happen. So, you know. Being creative and being able to kind of really, you know, throw your heart and soul and lots of blood that's been mixed into my shells. So, I mean, and you know, being able to throw yourself into the project and being able to finish it, step back at the end and look at it is awesome. But then to be able to step back or see your kit being played on a video or something like that that's a neat feeling. It's kind of weird. I mean, and sometimes it's real surreal, because I'll see something and be like, wow, I made that. Yeah, that's crazy. You know, some guys, they just recorded just an amazing album, you know, and that's on there. So that's pretty crazy. Sometimes I forget that stuff, you know, I don't, you know, and I have to really sit back sometimes and just think like, okay, you know, I'm helping guys, you know, I'm furthering their careers somehow. And I've become good friends with them. I've never hung out with them, never met them face to face, but to me that's cool. And to be able to build stuff, to get it to them, see pictures of them smiling, having a good time, playing drums, like, that's cool. That makes me want to get on to the next kit, keep building. So that's a success, you know. I'm making somebody happy. I definitely have a lot that I deal with. You know, I hide pain very well, but you know, I definitely have a lot. I have some back injuries and hand injuries and stuff that I have dealt with for a long time. And so I have my days where I'm out here, and you know, by the end of the day, the next day, I can hardly open my hands. You know, there's things where, I mean, in this kind of business, I mean, your hands and your back hold you together. I mean, you're doing so much, you know, tightening and sanding and carving, and it's hard. It's really hard. So a couple of my interns actually recently asked me, you know, how long could I hold out doing it? Because they've been in here with me on days where I'm just like, I mean, you know, we're going to town, and they're complaining because, like, man, this is killing my thumbs, you know, or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I was like, I've been doing it for 10 years. I was like, you know, I was like, that's why my hands, you know, look like they're 70 years old. And but it's a lot of hard work physically. So I think, you know, as long as I can hold out And I always have, you know, hopefully clients and drummers that want to do it. I mean, I'll keep, as long as guys want it, I'll keep building. As long as I can, you know, keep a roof over the head and keep it cranking, so.